When we ran 3 years ago, we said homelessness is going to be our #1 priority. And that's something that we've done a lot of work on, and there's a lot of work left to go. We have some fantastic partners within the city, and I want to say that when we start talking about the numbers and the accomplishments that we've made, it's only in recognition that whether it be other levels of government, BC Housing has been amazing and stepped up, so has the CRD. We've got a small little bit of help from the federal government, but most importantly, all of the service providers that are out there helping us do the work. Over the past 3 years, we've helped create close to 800 units, and it's in here, of what we've been able to help. Units that need to be supportive units for those that are hard to house. We've created ACT teams that provided support programs. We've created Streets to Homes programs through our Coalition to End Homelessness. We've helped house more than 1,500 people over the last 3 years. It is significant difference out there. It's not enough. We need to continue to do the work. We need to finish the job that we started. We put together a 10-year plan that said, here's how we're going to end homelessness. Now let's be clear. We're not going to end addictions. We're not going to end mental illness. We're not going to end poverty. We do not have the resources for that. But with our partners, we can make sure that everybody who has a home, that needs a home, can get one. It's a difficult road. We've made many miles on that stuff. But as Robert Frost said, we have many more miles to go. That's something we need to maintain in this next 3 years and keep it going. Let's finish the job. It's really important to me. Hopefully it's important to you too.
You're not going to like what I'm going to say. Listen, I was out there during the days of Vietnam protesting, and one of the challenges we had was to keep the public on our side. I think the movement is an honorable one. I really do. And we've got to keep the public on side. We've got to keep this movement going. I don't think it's doing anything right now, and I appreciate the sacrifice these people are making. I mean, it's cold outside. Imagine what they're sleeping through right now. But it's not helping the cause anymore. We've got to find a way of moving the cause forward in some other way, because we're going to lose the public support if we haven't already, and we don't want to. In terms of homelessness, just to respond to that, I believe under the last 3 years administration, you can only claim credit for 36 units. The rest of the units were started well before this administration started. So we've created 36 units at a cost of somewhere between $6 and $8 million. That's over $200,000 per unit. It's admirable what we're doing, but we got to pay attention to what it costs. We can do far better than that, really. And we block entrepreneurs who want to go out and create units themselves, and yes, they're going to make a little bit of money out of it, and we say, they're going to be slum landlords. You want to talk about slum landlords? Go down to the Queen's Hotel that the city bought. That is a slum. Come on, let's be realistic. We've got to pay attention to the bottom line. We've got to make this money work. These people need homes. And to throw money around without paying attention to the bottom line, I'm going to get better value out of the money. Thank you.
Okay, for your first question about helping support small businesses, I totally believe in small businesses. They make up 80% of the businesses of Victoria. They bring in the lion's share of employment opportunities and taxable benefits. As mayor, I would slowly decrease the amount we're spending with large business and change that focus to getting more services locally. We need to build our local economy. We're living in very charged global times, so building local resistance or resilience is something that's very imperative to our future. The Occupy Victoria movement, I wholeheartedly support those people who are occupying that square and fighting for our rights to stand up to the establishment, because the establishment is not serving the people anymore. They've taken Canada way off course, and we need to get back on course. That being said, there might be a time when those people don't need to be in that square anymore. My plan as mayor is to invest in our community centres and make them the dynamic areas for democracy that we should have had from the beginning. Right? That means more staffing, more resources, like media centers and things like that. And this is where people who are activists can come in, develop their message, and help have assistance to get it out to the community and build political will. Right? Democracy is all about political will. Right now, we need more of it, a lot more of it. And as for being on the chair with the police board, That makes me nervous. It does, because the police have been doing a lot of things that I don't feel proud of, and I think that's affecting the morality of a lot of the officers, right? We need to get them back on track. They need to start treating people with more respect. I've seen them having to do things that I'm sure they're ashamed of, right? We have them walking along at certain times of the year with garbage trucks, and they strip all the belongings off of individuals on the street and throw it in the garbage truck and continue on to the next homeless person. I don't think any officer in Victoria signed up for that detail, and I think that if we can get poverty off the streets by addressing poverty, we won't have to be sending our police force after them. It's not illegal, okay? So it's hurting our police force, and it's hurting our tax base.
So let's talk about the travelers. I want to clear some of that up from the start with. The City of Victoria went out and for about $6 million bought 2 travelers in. 710's Queens, which is 39 units. We also have 70 units in the Gorge Road one. It was important, and we worked with the community to understand 2 things. With Burnside Gorge community, they really expressed an interest in having more families in their community. And we recognize it's an overload community. We also recognize that one of the big challenges we have around homelessness is that First Nations make up 4% of our general population. They make up 26-27% of our homeless population. They make up a huge percentage of our populations in jail. I think like 40% of all children in care are First Nations. So we had an opportunity to work with our First Nations to say, how can we take the travelers on the gorge and turn that into First Nations family housing? And they have a dream, and they have something that they're working forward to. It's taking longer than we anticipated, but we think it's really important that we honor our First Nations partners as we move that one forward. So, just so you know the amount of units we're working with. Secondly, the money. Yes, we spent $6 million. What they're not telling you is we got $2.5 million from the provincial government to help purchase that. We got $1.2 million from the federal government to help purchase those. We got over $1 million from the CRD to help purchase those. In the end, the City of Victoria is putting in about $1.2 million to get those 2 units, to get those supportive housing units out there. Then they make the claim that it looks like a slum. So we had an opportunity last Christmas. And what we said is, it's cold and wet weather, and let's put 40 mats on the floor at St. John the Divine. And you know what? No one was coming in and using those mats. And we sat in a room and said, let's get out of the box. We've just got the travelers. We were going to close them to do the renovations. And we said, you know what? Let's take the money, that operating dollars that are associated with those mats on the church basement, sleeping with 40 other people all together collectively, and open that travelers now. Let's open it now so people in the cold and wet weather could move into their homes. And we did that. That's what we moved forward on. We had to go in. We had to spend some money to make sure life and safety issues were secure. The railings are rotting and all of those sort of issues. We now have a plan with Kool-Aid, and we'll be moving forward with the renovations. Part of why it hasn't gone so fast is we want to be able to do it 6 units at a time. I don't want to empty those 40 people out of there. 6 units at a time so that we can do the renovations and not have to displace people. So there's the big plan. So make sure you get all the facts, the numbers, and all of this is on the website. We're hiding it right there in front of everyone on the website, published in the paper. It's all there. So make sure you know that. I am not aware of anybody that has died in 710. I think it would be brought to my attention by staff, brought to my attention by police. I mean, these are things that we brought to our attention. I do have a concern with some of the other travelers. Yes, we've had 2 murders in other travelers. We've had a fire. There's some major serious concerns about private management that's not putting money in. And when someone comes forward to me and says, I want to build substandard housing and make money off the poor, I'm saying make sure the housing is decent and make sure you have the supports in there. Don't ask me. You got the wrong mayor if you want me to approve slum housing.
Yeah, it's really sad to hear that there's so many deaths related to that house or that Queen's apartment. I was talking to someone who was complaining about the bed bug situation there. It's unfortunate what we do, cramming too many people into one small space and spending our tax dollars like they grow on trees, right? I mean, Dean may have been able to say that a lot of the other money came from other sources, but that's still your tax money, and it's still being spent on a per unit basis that's astronomical compared to what a regular person would do, right? If you put your tender out and you challenge the people who are bidding your projects to make sure that they're coming in on budget and on time and in a realistic manner, there's no reason why the city should be subsidizing construction companies, right? there's a per foot basis for everything in the construction industry, and we should be making sure that we're sticking to those realistic estimates. Okay, we are paying way too much for capital projects in Victoria, and we have to stop that.
It's admirable that the city jumped in where the province should have been. But I'll tell you, when you get into something you don't understand, you've got to walk very carefully. We bought 2 facilities. One facility is operational. It's got 36 units in it. We've spent between $6 and $8 million. And when I say we collectively, that's how much money is being spent. The Travelers Inn on the Gorge, the budget was $400,000 to improve it. It is mushroomed to $4 million. They didn't do their estimates properly. That's why it's not open. The city didn't have the money to do it. They didn't budget properly. And yes, we got a lot of funds from other levels of government. But you know what? We're going to have trouble getting money from them in the future if we keep spending it the way we did. Because they're looking at it too and saying, wow, we got lousy value. This is not an administration that seems to pay any attention to the bottom line. We've only got so much money. We are in financial trouble already. We don't need to go further. I'll give you another example. Pandora Green. The budget was $210,000. They ended up spending $500,000. And they say they came within budget because they increased the budget. You know what I would have done? I would have spent $20,000 or $30,000 reseeding that lawn, putting some string around it, and enforced the no camping, and I would have put the rest of the money into our place to keep it open 24 hours a day. That's where the money would have done well. Instead, we poured $500,000 into a project that very few people use, very few people care about, and we went way over budget. We've got to pay attention to the bottom line. Thank you. I see the role of government, and more specifically the city, of encouraging affordable housing, not going out and creating it themselves, because we're not the experts. But we need to stimulate it in the community through grant programs. And I believe there's one in Fernwood where $50,000 was given, and it actually stimulated affordable housing in this building and then translated it over into the Yukon building. I mean, that's what government should be doing. It should be stimulating it, not doing it themselves. And as much as possible, getting out of the way, not creating blockages or roadblocks. Now, I'm not saying we want to relax our standards, but we want to make it easy. We want to make it affordable. And I always think of a place in Toronto called Kensington Village. What a lot of character. I don't think the city of Victoria would allow that type of housing. It would be considered slum housing, but that is great. That's community. And this is community here. This is the sort of stuff we want to stimulate. Okay? Community. Community is not luxury condos downtown, which the city seems to encourage, and they're empty half the time. Community is where you have all sectors of the community, the wealthy, the middle class, those struggling to get by, and those that aren't able to get by. That's community, and that's Kensington. And I think Fernwood comes the closest to that. And you know what? I would love to see that sense of community created north of downtown, between Douglas or along Douglas and Government Street, where these hotels are. There is an opportunity to create a community there if we try. But we can't get in the way. We've got to stimulate. We've got to work for it.
I want to commend you and your group for creating 40 units. I'm sure you did it at millions of dollars less than what the city would have paid for that same project. We need to support our communities and support community activism. Roots to Roofs is a really good group. We got lots of different housing cooperatives that we could be funding again. But my idea is to try and harness the energy that's already here in Victoria. We've got a lot of people living in very high rent locations. And now if we could stimulate a program for them to get together, 63% of Victorians rent. So they're the majority of Victoria. So it's not a stretch of imagination to have a city hall that serves the majority of Victoria and helps them facilitate small cooperatives and then relaxes bylaws, changes some rules. That's what you do at City Hall. You change bylaws and create rules that people will live by, enabling them to transform their newly bought house to serve their needs. 4 or 5 people living in a house together. They're already doing that by renting, but we need to change bylaws to make it legal for them to do that. The other thing we can do... Oh, I've lost my train of thought there. But yeah, we definitely need to be supporting of, once we start getting people out of their high rent apartments and into housing that's their own, we'll be taking a lot of pressure off the rental market. And landlords will start to recognize that by lowering their rents, they'll have more security of having their renters stay there longer. So this will help everyone over the long run by lowering the rents in Victoria. It's a very high and expensive place to live, and it shouldn't be that way. Mortgages were designed to consume 32% of your income. Now, a lot of people I've met on the street are paying far more than that for rent. And this is keeping them in a rental trap, and it's hampering their ability to develop a positive future. So we should be doing everything we can to help our working people in Victoria into ownership relations with their housing. Thank you.
I'm not going to directly talk about specific proposals. One, I don't know what was taken to staff, and the other one, I think I know which one you're talking about, but we'll clarify it. Been really proud of the work that we've done. I've been very fortunate to be a councillor. As part of a councillor, I was on the CRD Housing Trust. Small part to play, but very happy to support the neighbourhood as they put in the units above here, bringing money from our City of Victoria Housing Trust Fund, bringing money from the CRD Housing Trust Fund. Supportive on the Yukon. I remember the Yukon public hearing process. That was one that council had to stand up and say, you know what, I know you might not like the sound of children running up and down the street, but it's something that we in the city believe in and continue to support. Over the last 3 years, we've continued to support and work with your partners. We don't do the housing. We do it with BC Housing. The big plan, we work with BC Housing, we work with service providers, we work with Mayoral, we work with Kool-Aid. It depends what's going on. We work with Pacifica to put in some housing in. The Greater Victoria Rental Society has put housing in. We've done a lot of housing. It's been exciting. Family housing, below market rental family housing over in Vic West. Old building abandoned by a developer. Help the Pacific pick it up. We've got that housing going in there. And we've also, and people forget about this because we did this 3 years ago, but we legalized secondary suites. Oh my gosh, what a revolutionary concept. We provided an incentive because that was going down that we said we're going to do a $5,000 incentive to help people create secondary suites. Because the economy was going down, we wanted to keep people working. It was a way for seniors to stay in their homes. It was a way for young people to buy in and have a renter help. And secondary suites are great for single parents that you can have access to backyard and green space for kids. And it's a way to densify your neighborhoods. I argue re-densify because we used to have a lot of people living in homes without actually eating green space. We want to continue the work not only for the subsidized housing that we need for the hard to house, but we want to bring in what's known as a STIR program, short-term incentive for rentals. What can we do to make sure that everybody can afford to live in this town? How can we create more rentals? Let's waive parking fees. Every underground parking spot is between $30,000 and $50,000. Imagine, that's the cost of adding a parking spot to everything. So whether it's short-term incentive for rentals, whether it's requiring condos that are built that they cannot ban renters, we can't force them to rent, but we can make sure that they put in rules that they cannot forbid people from renting. There's many things we can do. We'll continue to make our city livable because that's important.